And I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So in this presentation, I wanted to decode the last part of the picture that Nikola Tesla, in my view, clearly staged when he was promoting his weapon to end all wars in approximately 1935. So this is the press photo. And the part that is left undecoded, as far as I'm concerned, is the foot of this flower stand, this vase. The vase, as I've said before, has this Vesica Pisces, and this is holding a flower in the area where the soil would contain the something to provide life, and the band around this lampshade, I have argued, is equivalent to this Coptic Christian art, going from Alpha to Omega. So this is in the land of the living, and this is the overall Coptic Christian art here, with the two angels, the angel of life and the angel of death, the Alpha and Omega, and you have your Chi Rho, your Christ center in the middle of this structure. And the presentation that this came from was called Ode Circle of Life, so you can go and have a look at that. And yes, it's the bottom of this flower pot, which we want to try and decipher today. Okay, so I'm going to do that. First, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of images that led me to understand this particular structure, or come to the conclusion that this structure was relevant. And so some of the early ones were in the lion experiment, and this was on the outside of the lion. And so this is on the surface of the fused quartz, and it was definitely, to me, a macrostructure. It's several centimeters, or a couple of centimeters, or at least 12 millimeters across. It's quite large relative to an atom, I would say. And it's got substructures in there that are self-similar, and it looked like a magnetohydrodynamic structure. It was then therefore no surprise sometime later, where in ultra experiments we observed these kinds of things, which turns out have the exact ratios of the yin-yang. And when other experiments were conducted by myself, we came up with this, where we had on one side, there was material being desynthesized, and so it would appear the aluminium has lost an oxygen and become boron here, and over here the aluminium has gained an oxygen and become calcium over on this side. There's no boron here, and there is no calcium on this side. And this is a classic bar spiral galaxy type structure, and we've tried to show how that might occur using this structure in the 3D sense. Anyway, so this is if you go back to here, this is a pit with a cone in it, and this is a cone with a pit in it. In fact, that gives you this kind of structure. However, this one's actually flipped. This is a cone with a pit in it, and this is a pit with a kind of cone, except that it's been kind of eaten away. Okay, so those are kind of like, this is a strict surface structure in the Lion reactor that I observed. This is kind of 3D, but impressed upon a surface, as is this. This is a flat steel vibrator plate from Roche and Amasa, and you can see very clearly we have these extreme points in the center of this overall figure of eight kind of structure here. Now, in this Amasa sorry, that was near Marsa. In this ultra experiment that I conducted, this is using the Dynalight microscope, and we have the overall OM shape here. Now, this structure to me looks a lot like a monkey, like a macaque or something. Not a macaque, a gibbon or something. I don't know. It looks like a monkey to me. Looks kind of nose down here, but it has this thing sweeping up into here and round. Anyway, so it's in these kind of experiments where you start to see something down in this lower section down here. And in this Henk urine Vega experiment, this is on the fused quartz outside, I observed this caduceus beam coming down where the vortex has got this disruption beam, and it goes up to a point, and we've discussed this in the past, and it's kind of like offset as the way the vortex works, and that's actually represented in the thing by Nikola Tesla. If we went back to that, you will see that it is in there. So here we go. It's like one of the vortices is behind and up, and the other one's in front and down. So it's the same kind of thing in my view. So back here, and then this is a more 3D structure, and I have thought for a long time this was the breaker, but I think we'll find that actually it's the maker today, and we need to view it really from the back. But anyway, this is coming from the inside of the reactor out, whereas the one over here was coming from the outside in. So there's no damage on the inside of the quartz tube here, and on this one there's no damage on the outside of the quartz tube, and they have different orientation with respect to the B field. But this is actually a kind of 3D structure eaten into the fused quartz. This is extremely 3D. This was the Parkhomov 225-day reactor structure that I found in a nickel hydrogen system conducted by Dr. Alexander Parkhomov, and you can see this got this half kind of Vesica Pisces. I'm still not certain whether this goes this way up or 180 degrees, but anyway, it's interesting that the Vesica Pisces section in the middle with this fluffy carbon only kind of goes up to halfway. I've always found that a little bit interesting. So that's definitely 3D, and it was stuck together and moved around as a blob with the electron beam on it. This was in a Suhas Ralkar experiment in 2017 in Mumbai, and I took this with a high-speed camera and a light off to the side. And this is one of the first times that this is actually the first time that I saw what I call the disruption zone. And these bubbles you see are because of depressurization of the water that allows the bubbles to come out of solution or form, and then the light reflects off them, and you see this white light reflected, which means something depressurized this down here. And the forces that did that, I believe, are the same kind of forces that gave this section down here, and that is also this caduceus kind of spiral beam that comes down here. I think that's all part of the same thing. So if you compare that to that, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Now, this is obviously in a water fluid, and it's in free fluid volume. This is in free air with smoke, and this was done by Alien Scientist and his colleagues, and it's a Lord Kelvin type soliton smoke ring, and then he's got a laser that cuts through it, and that gives you the cross section. And so you see the vortex coming in here and the vortex coming in here, and this kind of Sothic triangle type fluid dynamic flow going on. The disruption zone here would be down the bottom here. Okay, so there's that. Now, this was, like I say, the first disruption zone I saw, but this one was in a Marsa gas on tungsten. And new elements are synthesized here in the magnetohydrodynamic structure part, and down here in the disruption zone. If you look at that, it's at the kind of tip of the depressurization here on the caduceus beam. There is this circle, and it appears that this is higher in strontium, whereas the rest of it's tungsten. But you know, maybe strontium, I don't know, but it's certainly a sphere. What we have then is this kind of circle area here, where on one half of it, it has this film of carbon. And if any other experiments are similar, then this is diamond. And so it basically is ripping this matter apart. And so this was, for me, this was interesting, the level of depressurization here. But when you're seeing it's enough to rip matter apart somehow, then this was, for me, a stunning visual when I was able to catch it in Alan Goldwater's Magic Sound Lab in 2019 and shared it shortly afterwards in ICCF 22 in 2019 in Azizi in the poster sessions. And so it's not surprising that in 2019 we saw this substructure, which has the same kind of area with this disruption zone here and material coming up. And so that's that. So I kind of decided that basically this was acting like a monopole, and I've argued that at length since. And I have argued that the belief that the Egyptians had that the part below the loop of the ankh, this sort of T-shaped here, is the key to all hidden knowledge, and I would agree with that. And if we look at the ankh, it's normally associated with Sothic triangle, and if I shift over to the right here, there's the ankh with the Sothic triangle. I believe that the Sothic triangle is here, and this little notch that's taken out of it is the disruption zone. So if you see that in respect of this, and if you see that in respect of this, and you see that in respect of this, and you see that in respect of this, then you can see this disruption zone here. And so that is where I sort of, went with that. And then I started looking at, historical art, religious art, and so forth. And that's how I came to study Coptic art. And that led me to see this particular piece of Coptic art. And then having published that, or the previous piece of Coptic art that I was discussing, someone sent me this image and said, I think there's something going on here. And I actually think this part of the Vesica Pisces going up to the this part of the Vesica Pisces coming up to about here, as is in that bowl of the flower pot. I think that is essentially the Holy Grail, because the spirit energy goes into here. Okay, so that being put to one side, I, as I said, I've been looking to see if there are any correlation between other sort of history, or should we say ancient works. And one thing that I came across was Beowulf, which according to one writer, this could be around AD 550. Actually, it doesn't really matter. The interesting thing is that this art that is kind of associated with the Vikings from Sweden and Norway and Gotland specifically is very interesting to me. So if you remember what I was saying in the case of here, this is the alpha and this is the beginning after the end of death. And so life is through here, life is through here in his picture, and it's behind where you can't see it, which is the death. And the omega at the end here is at the end of life. And so this is one life kind of vector going on here. And when I saw this, I recognized several things pretty much immediately. And so if we go into that image more closely, apparently this is a sun wheel according to conventional thinking. I actually think it's a coherence of spirit energy, or one might say dark matter, but anyway, spirit energy coherence, and I will show my argument for that. I think that this is effectively the alpha in this drawing, and this is the omega. And if we go in closer, we see the alpha and the omega. And you can see there are 6 vortices around here, double vortices, and in the center, you've got a quadskeleton. Okay, and that, my friends, that quadskeleton is the same as the quadskeleton that's at the bottom of the flower pot there. Okay, so now the other thing is that leads me to believe that this is the alpha and this is the omega, is that we have a Viking burial boat here. This is what I am interpreting this as, because we don't see many people here. And there doesn't appear to be anyone alive on here. It does look like it's got oars, but anyway, it seems to be rowing in this direction, although you could argue that the oars are going to push back this way. No, I think it's going in this direction, and therefore, to me, this is from birth to death. Birth to death, and that would make sense if it's going in this direction, because it would be death at this point. And so a Viking burial boat, which looks something like this one in Oslo in Norway. This is the Usberg ship, and this is talking about another one, that a Viking burial barge being dug up here, and they're worried about it. So this is a Viking burial barge. So I think that's what is going on here. And if we look at the overall image, I see this as being a kind of flipped structure of the what's going on in the pyramid, and we will talk to that. Now, there are other images in Gotland and in this family of art, Viking art, and we can have a look at one of those here. And again, this is a quadskeleton, and it has these 5 spots in a circle. That's one of the alchemical symbols for gold. That just happens to be the case. And you can see that we've got the Christ center here also. Now, this is the point at which the 4 struts are coming up to join onto the midpoint of the Vesica Pisces in the image of Tesla. And so they're a little bit more involved, these quadskellions, than the one on here. And we've seen something similar to this in physical material that we have captured, and I will show that in a moment. So I have to thank the author of this tweet feed, and because they've got quite a lot of images here, and this guy is called Celestial Sentinel, and so thank you for sharing those images. And this one struck me as very, very interesting, because you've got a kind of quadskeleton type structure here. It's almost like a Celtic knot, but here you have a kind of vortex, but also you have the right proportions for the D4D with the Christ center in the center here. And so for me, this is really rather interesting. Now, it could just be artistry. It just could be artistry. This could be 2 snakes trying to eat something, whatever. But I find this very, very interesting that it's all from this same family of art from Scandinavia. And so I believe that these people had a deep understanding of this knowledge from somewhere. And So I can't dismiss this as not being an understanding of the D4D ratio that is necessary for the delivery of this technology. So I will go back to the image here, and I've got our Gotland slab here. And what I've done here is I've actually flipped it. I flipped it because in our pyramid, our breaker is on the right and our maker is on the left. And so where I go back to here, and we go back to here. This is the original orientation. So the breaker is on the right still, and the maker is on the left, but we're looking at it from not south to north. We're looking at it from north to south. So I have to kind of flip that, or rather, we're looking at it from the how should we put this? We're looking at this from the east side, and we need to be looking at it from the west side to flip this. Maybe I haven't made that clear, but I think you know what I'm getting at, because in the pyramid, the actual thing that's gathering etheric matter or cohering matter is actually, or doing something with it, is below. Now, it might actually be correct that because it's breaking stuff apart, it might actually be correct that it is a sun disk in the Viking sense, because it's taking it from the cosmos, and in this case we're taking it from an area below. But anyway, like I say, nothing's perfect, but I want to get this out the door. So if I overlay our structure here, then we can see that in the center of the breaker there is a kind of a free space with material coming out, and then there are arrows that are pointing outwards, okay? And then in the maker, there are similar arrows, but in this case, they are pointing inwards, okay? And then you have again, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's like more here for whatever reason. Over here, we've got 6. And in the center, we have the quad scallion that we see on the bottom of the flower pot of Nikola Tesla. So in that instance, again, because the way I've done it, I've flipped it. So this is the alpha, the beginning of life. This is the vector from here to here is the living vector, and it's going through to the death here. Okay, and in the process, it's absorbing energy from down here. Okay, now if it's flipped, it's taking it from the cosmos, let's say, but in our case, in the pyramid, we are taking it from the material down in the subterranean level. So where does that correlate to? Well, it correlates to the kind of tip area of this. It correlates to the top of the zone here. It's a little bit higher up than that. In this case, it correlates approximately to the area around here. It correlates approximately to the area of initiation of disruption here. It correlates approximately to the top region of the void in the Sothic triangle here. So we have the center point here. I go in, and then I bring in the Sothic triangle here. It's kind of like about here. Okay, so for me, that is really rather fascinating. Now, I said that we had seen something similar here. Okay, now we're looking at this the other way round, but if I was to flip this over to this side, we will be looking at it. So what I'm going to show you here now, I've learned something from this Viking art with respect to the cauliflower in the lion experiment. And that is that I now believe that this is the maker on the right and this is the breaker, and that we should be viewing this in terms of the pyramid from the backside. Okay, so the breaker is here and the maker is here. Okay, And very clearly on the back side, this has 6 divisions on the outside. I haven't got the back side here, but you can go and see that in other presentations. And if we bring it up, what I'm focusing on actually is here, something that I saw the very first time I took this image, and I think I'm going to try and see if I can get an even better image of this. But we have this spiral here and a seaming spiral here, and what I'm thinking that is, therefore, is the quad scallion. And if I take that off and on, you'll see, in fact, I'm going to lose the sacred geometry at this point. So there we go. So here's our quad scallion. Look at this bit which comes in here, and there we've got the bit that comes in there in the center of this structure. Okay, sorry, not that one. There we go. So thank you to the Vikings that drew these images here, because it's helped to clarify for me what is going on with this. And so we should be referring to this, in my view, as the breaker, and this as the maker from now on in this particular sample. And there we go. And we can actually see this other piece of art here where they've just got the quad scallion here, and you can see it's a little bit more complicated. And again, this is flipped. Okay, so this isn't the only one. There is this one as well. Okay, and again, this is from Gotland. It has a number of features which I think are interesting. One is this tree. Okay. The second are these 2 discs, and they're slightly different in the way that they're represented. Again, the one that, if we're to assume down here that there is, now apparently this is some sort of battle, and these are the people that survived or whatever, and I don't know, it's like half the people there. And so most of the people that are alive are on this side of, or in the center line of the tree, and the rest of them had gone, as it were. They're the dead ones. So it's kind of like these are still in the land of the living. So this is the alpha again, and this is the alpha, and this is the omega. So the birth and death, and it's represented, I believe, in a different way, but still, in my view, fairly clear here. And the other thing is they've got the sun wheel here, but the sun wheel here, the proportion to me when I looked at it is slightly different. And the other thing about it is it has this central part in here, which has got a kind of like void. And so what I felt I should do is do the same thing and flip this, which I've done here, to get it into the sense of the pyramid, and then overlay the sacred geometry template. And when I do this, it is really very striking. I would consider this is a more accurate representation. So the main action here, coming into the vortex on this center line here, and the center of this spot on this is the golden ratio line. So the both centers line up. Again, there's a different number here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got 8 around here. This one's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is 8. We do know that these structures can have more structures around them, substructures. So I'm not overly concerned about that. We have demonstrations of that. The interesting thing is within the eye here, we have the tree. I know it's flipped, but, you know, something to consider. But the other interesting thing is the registration of the so-called sun disk here is far more accurately placed when it comes to the other things that we have observed. So if I go here, this is, it literally is at the top of the dome of the decompressed water in the Suhas-Ralkar ultrasonic experiment. If you come to the interaction between HHO and tungsten in the Mars gas, it's absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Okay. Well, within a within a very small distance. So here we go. There is the circle here of material that seems to be left, and here we have a circle. So I don't know, but I think they are definitely sending the same kind of message, the Vikings of Gotland. And I believe that in both cases we are talking about a passage, if we go back to the original artwork here, from birth alpha, the making with the vectors coming in, and it's the structure here, the Ntor vortex is able to cohere matter from the cosmos. But also there's matter on Earth, which is going around in a cycle. So, the pyramid is actually extracting energy from the material that's put in that subterranean level. And obviously, ordinary matter is far more dense in its energy than etheric matter and relic and neutrinos and other dark matter. So, ordinary life is getting matter, its energy from the cosmos, and then when it's in here in the circle of life, it is recycling it. But the pyramid is actually using dense matter to start with, in my view, and that's why you flip it. And so here, this is the alpha with the matter being condensed into the point of life. Then we have our passage through life to death. And that is represented by the arrows going out. Okay. And in this particular one here, like I said, I believe this is showing the D4D ratio. It's certainly there. Whether they knew it or not, I don't know. But given everything else, there's a reasonable likelihood. And in this case, where we have it drawn slightly differently, I think it's more accurate. I kind of like the representation of the living and then the less living and then the not living at all. And it's not like they're missing. The person is writing the fact that there's some sort of battle where half the people died. But I don't think it is that. I think actually it is you're really living here, and you're getting into old age, and then you're gone, and it's just a reflection of the nature of life and death, and these people were very in touch with that aspect of existence, and so we flip that and we put the sacred geometry over the top, and we get a zone that's very, very closely, in my view, representing where the disruption zone is, and in this case has this area here, and then it comes in, and we have our life and death. So that is pretty much what I wanted to say in this video. So thank you very much for your time. I believe we have concluded the analysis of this highly staged photo by Nikola Tesla. And he really knew what he was talking about, or someone knew what he was talking about. They were talking about when they arranged these things. And given the fact that the Wardenclyffe Tower is a D4D structure and is essentially based on the this structure here, with the D4D structure being it's difficult to see without actually having a yin yang in there. Okay, so this is your D, and then 4 of those across the center makes your 4D, and that is the same as I am saying we are seeing in this Gotland piece of art here, where we have the same kind of ratio here, and we've got a vortex going on. So I think they knew more than we give them credit for, and certainly the Coptic Christians knew a lot, and I think we really are going to find a lot of art from ancient times and even long before Christ reflect this sacred geometry. And it is not a surprise to me now, wherever it is. It doesn't matter whether you go forward in time, current experiments, or backward in time, you are going to see the same thing every time.